Good morning, America, and the rest of the world, wherever you are, whenever you are in the future. It is morning where I am in the world, and I feel the urge to tell you about Bitcoin, of course. What else? And specifically Bitcoin price and where I think there is a possibility it could be going and the game theory as to why that's going to happen. Okay. And this video is going to be a bit different than other ones. And other ones I try to be more, let's say, conservative or more realistic. This one's going to be a bit different. We're going to go for the full parabolic, like what's the worst case slash best case scenario that could happen depending on if you're off zero or not. So now I know what some of you may be thinking. I made a video yesterday. I'm wearing the same stuff. It's night outside. What's going on? Well, actually, it is 4:30 in the morning here. I've spent the whole night up. Bitcoin is 81,500 right now, so we're closing on 82,000. So I missed 4:20 a.m. by 10 minutes. So I guess not time to get high, but Bitcoin's high. So anyway, why am I up? Well, I'm up because today's been a very busy day, as you can imagine. Of course, a lot of people have been reaching out. A lot of people were looking to buy Bitcoin. Most people, though, have not been looking to buy Bitcoin for the first time. Most people have been reaching out are people that already own Bitcoin, already own a significant amount of Bitcoin, people that are looking to buy a significant more amount of Bitcoin. What this tells me is that this means that, retail sentiment interest is not really there yet, at least for me, anecdotally. So take with that information what you will. I'll get to that more in a second with some data that backs that up. Most of this price action is, for me, quite interesting. Again, the fact that we are going into now the 80s, 80Ks on a weekend, like this is a lot of volume, right? And this is a very weird place of timing, right? Like I expected Bitcoin to pump a little bit after Donald Trump, but I did not expect it to pump this much. I mean, we have over a 10% move. It's up basically 5% in the last 24 hours. I mean, some things are, to me, it just seems very odd and suspicious. And so I'm going to go through the game theory of what I am hearing people talk about and what I think is really important for you to keep in mind. Also today, in addition to talking to clients, literally all day, evening, and now night into the morning. Part of the reason I'm staying up too is because I'm flying to El Salvador in a couple hours. So that's another reason I have these lovely, adorable little American, cheap American flags. Because I'm leaving my home country and going down to El Salvador, Bitcoin country, for a couple weeks. For a Bitcoin retreat. I've got, little over a dozen people I'm bringing down there with me. It's going to be an awesome retreat on the back end of the Adopting Bitcoin conference. But another thing too, I was working on today was working on some a letter with some partners that we're sending to the U.S. government through some senators, both in the current lame duck session as well as the upcoming one. I can't say much more about that, but the point is that I'm doing everything I can to help people understand of what potentially could be approaching, right? So obviously, if you're in Bitcoin, if you clicked on this video, you're not living under a rock. You have seen what has happened, right? Again, the Bitcoin is going up. Now, I think the important thing to keep in mind here is that this is Bitcoin in terms of the US dollar. Now, if you were to look at the stock market in terms of Venezuelan bolivars, you would see a chart that would be dramatically skyrocketing, right? Like the chart would not stop going up, right? If I search that right here, right? And you would say, oh, that's dishonest. It's not actually that the stock market is going up. It is that the Venezuelan bolivar is actually trending down against the stock index, right? And so I would say, why on earth is that true for the Venezuelan political currency, but not the American political currency, right? Why does American get the exception, right? I think it's the same kind of idea here, right? Why are you pricing something that is finite in terms of something that is not finite? So my point in saying all this is that, again, as difficult as it is, as many times have you heard me and other people say it, do not be primarily thinking about Bitcoin in terms of number go up technology. You are not watching Bitcoin rise as much as you're watching things fall in terms of Bitcoin. You are not watching Bitcoin reach all new time highs. You're watching the US dollar reach all new time lows. The US dollar has literally never traded lower than it is right now, right? If we're viewing the world from a dual currency world between Bitcoin and the US dollar, everyone who has ever bought and held Bitcoin is in profit, and everyone that has held American political currency units is at a loss, right? And I think that loss is going to get a lot more dramatic because obviously, you know this. If we look at previous Bitcoin cycles, every single time that we supersede a new low in the dollar, typically the dollar tends to fall significantly more than what it has. So how high is this going to go? I don't know. Do we get a pull back in price? I really hope so, but I'm going to consider the possibility in this video that maybe we don't. I hope we do get a pullback. I hope number doesn't just go straight vertical. I hope we don't have an omega candle, but let's explore the possibility in case we do, because even though it's a small possibility, I think we need to consider it, right? So what do I think could be a potential catalyst for it? What is on my mind? What is keeping me up at night? What am I hearing, right? A lot of people are curious about different things like the 4-year cycle, the halving, the ETF, blah, 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 all that. To me, personally, and also to a handful of people whom I tend to respect and esteem, the real only question in my mind right now is not any of that stuff. The only question that is running through my mind right now, and again, cue the American flags, the only question in my mind is what is going on in this guy's head? Okay, Orange Man, Donald Trump, I know, like, okay, oh, politics and Bitcoin. Yeah, I know, I get it. Okay. And I know my audience, right? Like 90% of you I know love Trump and the other 10% don't, and that's okay, whatever. But, put the politics aside, put the opinions aside. I want to talk about something really specific here, right? Okay. Now, why Donald Trump specifically? Okay. It's about game theory, right? Now, again, to clarify, when CNN interviewed me at Bitcoin Nashville, around Trump's speech, I made it very clear, even though they repeatedly during the interview basically tried to coax it out of me that I was a Trump supporter, or at least make it seem like I was a Trump supporter. I made it very clear in my interview that, should not trust politicians, right? Politicians have their word. Hopefully they keep their word. But again, I want to make it very clear, everything I'm about to outline is not necessarily pro everything, right? To me, it matters much less what do we want, what do we not want. The thing that matters if you're going to be an investor, if you're going to be saving, is what's actually going to happen, right? So you may be commenting in this video furiously already and saying, we don't want nation state adoption, blah, blah, blah. We want the little guy. Or you might be saying, oh, this is great. It's wonderful. Number go up, whatever. Whatever your opinion, doesn't matter if what I'm about to say excites you or terrifies you. If you like it, if you don't like it, all it matters is that you think in probabilities about what could happen, whether you like the outcome or not. And we have to consider all those probabilities. So I'm just trying to get out of the way that is the heart of where this video is coming from. So what is this picture here? This is a picture of Franz Ferdinand. Now, if you don't know who Franz Ferdinand is, his assassination was, by essentially every single historian ever, the main cataclysmic moment which led to the events of World War I. And obviously, if you're any kind of history nerd of the 20th century, World War I was the defining moment of, basically plunging the rest of the century into war, fascism, communism, and the deaths of hundreds of millions of people. So why on earth am I bringing it up? I'm bringing it up because I have a real question. What if, in the same way this assassination attempt was a pure fluke coincidence that led to the beginning of a world war, which then led to multiple wars? What if it's a similar, an inverse perspective to the Donald Trump assassination attempt, right? So obviously, as probably everyone watching this remembers, Donald Trump's life was spared by a chart that he turned his head towards looking at the screen, and again, just by chance, literally by inches, his life, was spared. Right now, of course, the inverse scenario to Trump, someone who was less fortunate, again, was Franz Ferdinand, right? And it's actually a very interesting story here. So, Franz Ferdinand had an assassination attempt against him in the morning when he was going to an event. It was a bomb that was thrown at the car. The bomb deflected off the car and it exploded the car behind him. He was not harmed. He still went to the event, and on the way back from the event, his driver took a wrong turn. They went down a wrong street, and they went down the precise wrong street at the precise wrong time because they drove by a sandwich shop in which one of the guys who was one of the collusion assassins that previously tried to kill him early in the day would happen to be right there, and the car happened to break down at the exact same moment, right? So it's almost as if fate determined that we want this Archduke assassinated, right? At the right place, right time, with the wrong driver going down the wrong turn, with the sandwich and the car breaking down. It's an incredible story, and of course, then led to a series of events that led to the war. And likewise with Trump, this is the kind of thing where I really wonder what if Trump is thinking, let's have America adopt a Bitcoin reserve? Right now, I know, again, a lot of what do you think? Luke, what are you thinking? That's not very likely. I don't think Trump understands Bitcoin. Like, I agree. I don't think Trump understands Bitcoin fully. He has his Trump coin, his world liberty scam, whatever the token, right? But again, we're just thinking in terms of a small probability with a very, very high risk if you aren't actually prepared for it. So again, I think Donald Trump is the factor to keep in mind here, right? Everything else, right? Microsoft buying Bitcoin potentially, they're going to vote on December 10th. Michael Saylor buying Bitcoin, all these things. Let's just go through the potential nation state game theory of Bitcoin here because I think it's really important and it makes me very, very curious. Who on earth is buying right now with so much energy on a weekend with so much effort and volume, right? Because if we look actually at Bitcoin sentiment on Google, it's actually not remarkably high. This is the uptick in sentiment. We've gone from 11 up to 21, so sentiment has doubled, although we are lower than we were in March and April of 2024. We were lower than we were in 2021, and we were definitely lower than we were in 2017. Okay, keep that in mind. We have not hit an all-time high for Bitcoin retail sentiment since December of 2017. Okay, a lot of you watching, haven't owned Bitcoin ever in peak retail excitement, literally, right? It's like that's something really important to keep in mind. And so that's my big question: who is buying right now? I don't know who's buying. I'm not claiming to know who's buying, but I do think there's an interesting question here of what is Trump thinking, and equally as important, not what is Trump thinking, but what are other world leaders of other countries think that Trump is thinking. That I think is the other important thing too. A lot of times it's not just about what is actually happening, it's about what are people's perceptions of what's going to happen. So again, I know politicians, but again, like I am very consistent on trying to be politically neutral, but reality is that the politicians are in charge of the fiat world right now. So right now, most of the high net worth people I'm talking to are pretty focused on wanting to discuss with me, what do you think is going on with Trump, right? Of course, lower net worth people are focused on other things in my experience, and that's okay. But, the people I've been talking to that have larger amounts of money, they're very concerned about what happens if America starts smash buying Bitcoin because they know that is the real question here, right? Everything else is noise. Everything else obviously is more likely, but has a much smaller impact on Bitcoin. So let me get back to my little screen of text here, right? So I think that World War III, and war is probably a bit of a dramatic word, but I think a global redistribution of energy production and consumption is in the cards, right? Like I think the world, specifically good old America, right? Yippee! Good old America, what have we been doing? We have been exporting political currency to the rest of the world for decades, right? Like I said, at the beginning of this video, I'm flying to El Salvador in a little over an hour here. And, what they have to use dollars. We print dollars here in the land of America world, and we give those dollars to those foreign nations, right? And we get their labor, we get their materials, we get their commodities, we get their people for cheap, right? People, the families literally send their husbands, their brothers, and their sons to work here in the United States, right? Because they want to get that sweet, sweet, juicy American political currency, right? We are exploiting the rest of the world in a zero-sum game to hoard their resources to defend the military. The military defends the political currency. It's a feedback loop, right? And I think the problem is that that kind of incentive structure eventually, historically, at some point begins to unwind. When the nation goes away from productivity and towards regulation, that's where things start to unwind. And so I do think after 80 years of America putting their foot on the scale and against the rest of the world in favor of our own country, I think that really, really has to say something about, at some point it's got to rebalance. Like this cannot go on. It will end. And so either this is going to end in some sort of peaceful fashion where we, in a cooperative fashion, the globe rebalances, okay, who gets what energy dependent on how productive they are versus in a violent fashion. In the violent fashion, we redistribute who gets more energy based on who's more productive as a function of who can produce the most tanks, the most guns, the most bullets, the most bandages, the most soldiers to throw as cannon fodder, right? Though, one way or another, The world is unbalanced. Energy has to flow to where those that are the most productive can steward that energy. And right now, I'm concerned that we're heading towards the violent path. However, of course, Bitcoin, right? That's why we're in Bitcoin, because we believe Bitcoin is a monetary tool, an incentive structure that incentivizes away from political currency violence and hopefully towards cooperative collaboration, right? So maybe war is a bit of a dramatic term for Bitcoin, right? But if you think of it like soft war, I think that's the way to think about it, right? So we are going to rebalance our energy, right? And this is, I think, in a lot of ways, why Donald Trump rose to influence and power in 2016 and ever since then, right? Again, like every politician is a meme, right? And memes lie and memes change, and I get that, right? But you got to think about it. What was the meme of George Bush, right? Memes are ideas, ideas are slogans, and slogans are based on people's 5-second emotional interpretation of that president, right? Bush had a very specific idea in his period of time here in America, right? 9/11 had just happened. You have the wars going on. People lost a lot of trust in the system because of the wars, even though at first they strongly threw support of the system because of 9/11. Then you had Obama come in claiming to be the voice of change in his first election, and then in the second election, or the voice of hope, right? That was literally a slogan. That was his meme, hope, right? And then Trump comes around, and I think one of the main reasons why Trump rose to dominance in America is because Americans, can start to feel this system that was benefiting us at the expense of everyone else is starting to cannibalize within itself. Because when you have extrapolated so much wealth from the rest of the world that every unit of effort you put in extrapolating and absorbing more wealth from the rest of the world, it means that you have exhausted that resource, and now you have to divert back to cannibalizing within your own society to exhaust it back to the top to keep the system running, right? And so a lot of people in America have felt this pain. They felt like they've been economically disadvantaged, right? Wages aren't keeping up with house prices. Wages aren't keeping up with living expenses. And so I think a lot of people wanted to flip the proverbial political table and throw in the outsider, whether you believe it is or not. That's the perception. He's the outsider to throw into the American political scene, right? So I think that's something else. Historical context getting up to this point, right? Of course, those are just my opinions. I think there's very strong reason to believe that, right? And so that's my question: is that what happens now that more and more people are feeling that the world doesn't make sense, that the world has scales and balances that have not been fair and equitable, right? What is going to happen, right? And so I wonder, in the same way that the Franz Ferdinand was a historical event, that was a fluke coincidence that would have changed the course of history as we know it, what if Donald Trump does adopt Bitcoin in a kind of a meme, poetic, historical irony, just like there's so many ironies in history? What if these two assassinations are viewed, right? In the same way, this assassination was the attempt that was successful, that led to the violent deaths of hundreds of millions of people over the course of decades. What if this failed assassination attempt is indirectly, what is going to potentially lead to the result of the beginning of a global arms race for money, right? And basically a new kind of global war, and I say war loosely, right? A new kind of global competition to reestablish the world order and have those that are productive be in control of the world's energy, and not the regulators and not the fiat parasites, right? So that is my question there. Let me see if I can get my screen back up. Share, boom. There we go. Okay. So again, what is a possible scenario, right? I think the odds are low, but a 1 million Bitcoin, what happens if he buys a million Bitcoin, right? So Michael Saylor says he's going to issue $42 billion worth of various kinds of fiat capital to acquire Bitcoin. What I think needs to be really emphasized here about a nation state buying Bitcoin versus you, versus me, versus Michael Saylor himself. When political currency issuers set a target for how many coins they want to buy, they will do anything to reach that target. You have your stacking goal, whether that's you're trying to get to your first coin, or you're trying to get to your 150th coin, or you're trying to get to your 21st coin, or whatever. You have some stacking goal. And as a function of Bitcoin having NGU technology and going up, you get priced out of achieving that stacking goal. But if America determines, if they decide we want a million Bitcoin, they don't care what the spot price is. If they decide we want Bitcoin in America as a matter of national security, like there's like the forcing function is price, right? For you and me, the forcing function, the limitation on how many coins we can get is price. But for the United States, it's just how much can you print. And so when America buys one Bitcoin, it's not the same thing as your average retail person buying one Bitcoin, right? So it's entirely different. And I think that's something that we have to consider. What if, again, this is just a if then statement, right? I don't necessarily trust Trump. I don't necessarily think the odds are very high for this. However, it's like if this is going to happen, if this is going to happen, it's like, who else is it going to be? Like, who else? I mean, Trump is like the perfect meme. He is the perfect character. Like, he's literally orange. How much more of a sign do you want, right? Like, literally, he got up and said, fight, fight, fight after he was nearly taken out, right? It's like he has the courage, the tenacity, the ego, the narcissism, whatever you want to call it. He has the character flaws or benefits, again, depending on your definition, right? He has the meme. Like, if any president is going to be so contrarian, going to be so anti what the media projects he's going to do, and is going to be so bold and so courageous and so bombastic enough to do something radical to solidify his legacy of defending America, who else is it going to be? And you got to keep in mind what his incentive is. Back when Donald Trump hated on Bitcoin, he made it very clear he hated on Bitcoin because he perceived Bitcoin as a competition against the dollar. He thought Bitcoin was a zero-sum game. Now, of course, you and I know that's wrong. And I don't know if Trump fully understands why that's wrong, but he has made implications that he thinks that Bitcoin could actually strengthen the US dollar, right? And again, maybe he doesn't understand this now. But when a politician understands that Bitcoin defends their political currency, that is the game of musical chairs. I happen to have a lot of chairs behind me here, right? I didn't sell them all, I guess. But that is the game of musical chairs. When politicians begin to realize that, wait, we can defend our paper with Bitcoin? Oh, yes, sir. By having Bitcoin, we can stabilize the electric grid, right? Thus making, our citizens' lives better and defending the nation against, foreign attacks against our grid. Oh, wow, that's interesting. Oh, we can afford more renewable energy projects. Oh, wow, that's interesting. Oh, we can defend block space so we can assure we can have transactions in the ledger. Oh, wow, that's great. We can have Bitcoin on our balance sheet. We can issue more bonds to fund our military or our entitlement programs or whatever, right? Oh, wow, that's great. Oh, and by the way, those bonds are going to make so much freaking money that you're not going to have to take as many taxes from the citizens. You can lower taxes, meaning you'll get reelected or your constituents in the future will get reelected, or hopefully, and more people will come to your country because your taxes are lower, right? It's like it's a positive feedback loop. And do I think Trump gets that? No. But what are the odds he does soon? And if he is going to, again, it seems like he is the guy. It wasn't going to be Obama, obviously. It wasn't going to be Biden, right? It wasn't going to be Harris, I don't think. I don't think any of them have, the temperament to do it, right? Other, dominant Republican figures I don't think have the temperament or the character or the meme ability or the ego and desire to leave their legacy on America for generations to come and be the best, be the hugest, right? And so I just think that's something to consider. And if it's going to happen, it seems like Q1 2025 makes the most sense. If he's going to do this, why would he wait 2 years? Why wouldn't he do it now? You got to keep in mind who's on his team. Donald Trump may not understand Bitcoin very well. What about Elon Musk? What about Vivek Ramaswamy, right? What about J.D. Vance? What about Robert Kennedy? I think of all those people I just mentioned, Robert Kennedy probably understands Bitcoin the most of them all. And I think it could be perhaps a considerable margin, but you got to keep that in mind. Between the 5 or 6 of them, are any of them going to understand the things I'm saying here in this video, right? Are any of them going to understand the game theory and the feedback loop and the urgency of this, right? Because it's not just a matter of will Donald Trump figure out Bitcoin? It's a matter of the people around him in his immediate circle, right? If any one of them figures it out, if any 2 or 3 of them figure it out, all of a sudden Trump's going to have multiple of his major political allies and fellow marketers for his brand, right? Because really, that is Trump's genius, his brand. That's how he's gotten to where he is today. He's a master of branding, right? And, to him, orange coin, orange man, orange world, orange legacy seems like a pretty good brand to leave if you want to have your brand stamped on, the US forever, right? So it's just something to be of interest. And so the point is that if the other people in his brand are pro-Bitcoin, it becomes easier for him to be pro-Bitcoin. And if all of a sudden they're all, if Elon says, yeah, Bitcoin's okay, or Robert says, yeah, you got to buy 4 million Bitcoin, whatever, I think that's something really, really to consider. So again, what are the probabilities of this and what's going to happen if that happens? Well, let's think about percentages. Maybe today it's a 1% chance that this is going to happen in the next 6 to 12 months, that Trump's going to come out and say, we want to buy a million Bitcoin and we're not going to stop, right? Maybe tomorrow it's 1.1%, right? Maybe tomorrow it's another percent of a percent up, right? Maybe the day after, maybe it just keeps going up, right? You don't feel this. You might laugh at this idea. You might think, oh, that will never happen. Oh, nothing has changed. The world feels the same. But nonetheless, the odds continue to go up every single day, right? And likewise with Bitcoin, you may not feel it today, you may not feel it, but if you add it up over time, every single day, every single month, every single year, the momentum is shifting, right? Every single passing day that happens, that's one more chance for Trump to be orange pilled. Every single day that passes, that's one more chance for Elon Musk to double down on his understanding of Bitcoin, for Robert Kennedy to double down on his Bitcoin policies, right? Every single day that passes, the odds of these things go up. Like, it's going to happen at some point. If it doesn't happen this year, it might happen next year. If it doesn't happen next year, it's going to happen 22 years from now. If it doesn't happen 22 years from now, it's going to happen 50 years from now. At some point, it's going to happen, and somebody's going to do it. Why not now? And why not the most orange, memeified political figure, arguably the most famous person on the planet today, right? Why not him? Like, my point in this video is to say, I think most of us assume America's going to be last. What if they aren't? What if they aren't? What if they're next? I kind of hope they're not next, and I'll get to that more why in a minute. But you have to ask that question. Who's buying right now? Why are we seeing price go up so much? I don't know. I don't know who's buying, but I do know every single day the odds of Donald Trump in his head getting that idea of solidifying his brand as America's orange savior, right? As much as I disagree with the idea of Trump being a savior, right? All he is a temporary leader at this time in America, right? But I think that's what Trump wants his brand to be. He wants to be known as the guy that saved America. And if he believed Bitcoin was the most effective way for him to save America, why would he not embrace that, right? So we'll know in a few months what he's thinking. If he is going to pass some sort of thing, pro a million Bitcoin, I think we'll know in the next few months, right? So if you're not sure what to do, if you don't know where to start with buying Bitcoin, I would consider you to start buying just $1. Buy $1 of Bitcoin. Why is that? Because every dollar of Bitcoin is about 1,200 Satoshis. Right now, well, as always, there are 21 million Bitcoin. If you divide that by the number of barrels of oil in the world, there are 1,272 Satoshis per barrel of oil. Yes, that's right. If you're buying 120,000 Satoshis, you're buying 100 barrels of oil. And keep in mind, that includes no other asset on the planet. Forget the real estate, forget the gold, forget the silver, forget all the corporate equity, forget everything else in the world, forget the fine art, forget everything, just the oil. If you evenly divide it, assuming we don't drill another barrel of oil ever, that's 1,200 Satoshis per barrel of oil. People ask me all the time, is Bitcoin still cheap? People ask me today, Luke, is Bitcoin still cheap? Is it still a smashing buy? Yes, it's a smashing buy, and I'm still buying. Why am I still buying? How do you know I'm still buying? Because I buy $1 of Bitcoin every single hour. So yes, technically I am buying these levels, right? People ask me today, Luke, are you buying at the high? Yes, I bought here and 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 here. I bought all of these prices, right? So yes, I'm buying at all these prices because 1,200 sats, barrel of oil for $1 is not a bad deal, right? And so if you are someone that's watching this, that's new to Bitcoin, that feels like you're too late to Bitcoin, that missed the boat, and you want to gamble degenerate meme coins because you can't handle your emotional regulations, if you want to have that, I would encourage you, discipline yourself to have a long-term time horizon and buy $1 of Bitcoin. Maybe a day, maybe every couple hours, maybe every hour. I don't know. I don't care, right? The point is that be thinking of Bitcoin in terms of actual things. If you're looking at Bitcoin as just a number on a screen, you're going to have unit bias, you're going to have anchoring bias, and your emotions will get the best of you because your brain will pretend to have logic as an excuse for your emotion to justify whatever action you have, right? So my point is, think of Bitcoin in real terms, right? In terms of actual things, right? If you have one Bitcoin, that is 100 million, Satoshis. If you divide that, if I can do basic math here at 4:58 in the morning, Come on, brain, work. Okay, calculator says 78,616 barrels of oil. If you own one Bitcoin, you own 78,616 barrels of oil. Think about that. What does that look like? Have you ever seen 78,000 barrels of oil? No, you haven't. Yet that's what you have when you have one Bitcoin. So why on earth are you keeping that on Coinbase? Would you keep 78,000 barrels of oil in Times Square? No, absolutely not. That would be stupid. That would be foolish. Okay, don't do that, right? Oil is valuable, right? Oil is what makes the world go round. Oil is what militaries need to fund their wars. Oil and the strategic reserve stockpile of oil is in the national security interest of the United States. Oh, oil is just a useless black liquid. It doesn't do anything, blah, blah, blah. No, it's actually very important because without it, the military stalls. Likewise with Bitcoin. People say, oh, Bitcoin will never be a strategic reserve. Why is magic internet made up money? Part of it's because it defends the electric grid, because it defends the ability for America to print and issue more bonds into the market eventually when they realize that. Meaning, all of those things also defend the military. If you fail to defend the military, you fail to defend the country, national security threat. In addition to AI, block space, and everything else, which I don't have time to get into. But my point is, if you're wanting to know how much Bitcoin to get rich, where to start, if you're watching this and you're brand new, right, please just start buying, even if it's just $1 of Bitcoin an hour, a day, whatever, right? Think of 1,200 sats as 1 barrel of oil. $1 is 1 barrel of oil. I am stacking a barrel of oil per hour via Bitcoin. Again, keep in mind that this is assuming that no other asset in the world ever is priced in Bitcoin, only oil, which obviously that's ridiculous. So in reality, it's probably more like every 100 sats you're stacking as a barrel of oil, if not every 50 sats or 20 sats. Like, anyway, so I'm stacking oil and you should too, because America stacks oil and you want to own the thing that the nation state stockpiles because they'll be more than willing to pay for it, right? So if you are on zero and you want to learn literally where to buy your first dollar of Bitcoin, text the phone number on the screen or go to the information in the link in the description below. Text that phone number on the screen, your email address, as many questions or info you want to share. I'll be more than happy to help educate you to the best of my ability with what time I have available. And I will give you a barrel of oil. I will send you $1 of Bitcoin just because I want to invest in your future and accelerate your educational journey, right? So please do it. Please get off zero. If you don't do it now, if you don't do this video, when are you going to do it? You're never going to do it. You're going to procrastinate it. Bitcoin's going to go to 120 grand. You're going to regret it and you're going to say, dang it, I could have had that 1 barrel of oil when Luke offered it in that video. He's not offering it anymore. Shoot, I should have done it. Luke, can you send me that? Okay, so you get the point, right? If you're brand new, text the phone number on the screen. I will send you $1 of Bitcoin. If you are not new, if you've been in Bitcoin a while, send someone you love and care about this video if they're still on zero, and then they can receive a barrel of oil from me, right? I'm happy to send oil, except, of course, not the real physical thing. Let me do Bitcoin. Let me do the magic internet money. Oil is too expensive to ship. But all that to say, what would I do if I were China, the Saudis, or Russia, right? If I was those countries and I had a seat at the table, I would say, these other countries, if I was China, Russia, America has an oil stockpile reserve. That makes sense because they need that in case they need it for the military, right? Or for the economy, but especially in particular, the military, right? But let's say that I'm Russia or China, then I had the suspicion, we don't know if Donald Trump likes Bitcoin or not, but he went to the Bitcoin conference. He's surrounded by people in his close political aides that are pro-Bitcoin, right? And I think this is part of the difference between a nation state and the average retail person. The average retail person says, Trump won't buy 1,000,000 Bitcoin. That's ridiculous. That's just pure hopium, Luke. You just want pure number go up nonsense, whatever, right? But the nation state can't afford to think like that. China can't afford to think like that. Russia can't afford to think like that. Because if they do think like that, the one thing they miss will blindside them, and they will not only fail themselves as a politician and crumble into irrelevance, but the nation will be invaded, right? You have to be paranoid if you are going to survive. And so if I was China right now, if I was another major country right now, and I had suspicion that Trump was going to buy Bitcoin or Trump was going to order America to buy Bitcoin in the following next years, what would I do? I would dump my American treasuries. I would dump those treasuries. I would take those proceeds. I would buy Bitcoin and I would back my own treasuries with that Bitcoin. That is what I would do if I wanted to benefit myself and I wanted to start the global arms race for Bitcoin. Let's hit them where it hurts. Let's dump their bonds. Let's panic their markets. Let's cause other investors to dump their bonds while simultaneously we're stacking Bitcoin and helping our bonds, right? Potentially then investors would flee to our bonds. Now, of course, that would be pretty, if that feedback loop kept going, that would be pretty dramatic because when would that stop? I don't know when that would stop. But the point is that this could happen potentially faster than we think because obviously this is heavily incentivized to a first mover advantage, right? Look at Michael Saylor. Michael Saylor has crushed the competition, dominated the competition. There are less than 6 million Satoshis per Bitcoin, 0.06 Bitcoin. Again, if you own one Bitcoin, okay, you have more than 17 times more Bitcoin than the average company ever will. Again, forgetting every other kind of commodity in the world, including the oil that I mentioned before, right? So the point is, the average company is never going to be a deca Satoshi millionaire, right? They never are going to have 10 million sats. They're never going to have a tenth of a coin. Yet Michael Saylor over here is going to stack at some point in the next couple of years a third of a million coins, if not maybe 500,000 coins at some point, right? It's like it's not even it's a joke, right? It's like there's Michael and everybody else, right? Michael Saylor is more in common with Napoleon or Rockefeller than a CEO, right? And the country that figures this out first, how do we buy more Bitcoin? Let's dump the paper asset of the other country so investors also dump it and they panic. And then let's back our own paper that we've made out of thin air and back that with Bitcoin so that investors perceive our bonds as lower risk than the other country. And all of a sudden, now, of course, why has no country done this yet? Because that's a very, very costly and high risk action, right? If you start that, if you are playing a game of musical chairs, right? Again, I've got all my cute little chairs behind me, right? All my chairs here. If you're playing musical chairs, like you don't want to be first. You definitely don't want to be last, though. But you don't want to go first. You don't want to go before the music stops because obviously you get out, the music stopped, right? But you're eyeing everyone. You're watching like a hawk. You're watching. And as soon as you think the music stops and the incentive is now in your favor, you run and you grab that chair. And I really wonder, what if right now major politicians around the world are watching each other, in particular, what Trump is going to do? Trump has had 4 years out of office. Like I've been mentioning, he is increasingly more pro-Bitcoin. And I think that's important because China has become a little less hostile against Bitcoin in recent years. Putin, even more so, right? Putin has said himself he would consider selling oil in terms of Bitcoin. And this becomes a very serious question very quickly. If all of a sudden one of these countries is stockpiling an asset, the other countries inherently should also stockpile that asset in case they ever want to trade or exchange that asset with the other country, right? If America stockpiles Bitcoin, other countries will have to follow suit just because it's what America's doing. And maybe someday they might want our Bitcoin. They clearly want it now. They may want it in the future. So let's go ahead and buy some just in case. But more importantly, what if Putin does say he will also accept Bitcoin for oil? Now it's an even more incredibly important thing to do. Because if you want oil, which you need oil if you're going to function as a country or a military, you need to have the optionality to be able to exchange with other countries for their precious, precious black liquid gold, right? This is what I'm trying to describe here, this kind of game theory. Do I think it's going to happen? No, I think it's a very slim probability in the next few months or even the next couple of years. But we do have to realize if any politician thinks the music has stopped, even if it hasn't stopped, and they start running to a chair, everyone else inherently reactionary runs to a chair, right? If you've ever played musical chairs, that's exactly what happens. It doesn't matter if the music's actually stopped or not. As soon as you see someone make a dramatic, violent move, you have no other option than to run because the asymmetric risk is in your favor. Only the first person that runs in a game of musical chairs gets out, right? Only the first person is the one that really gets hammered, right? Take Michael Saylor, right? Michael Saylor was the one that ran first. He was the only one that was going to get really burnt of everyone else, of all the more latecomers, because he was the one that took all the freaking leverage early on, right? So the point is, if we have nations that are eyeing each other up, and if one takes the leap, even if they fail, all the other nations have an incentive to at least get off zero, right? Doesn't matter what we do, just as long as we get off zero, because you don't want to be first, but you definitely don't want to be last. So that is exactly what I would do. Right now, I am obsessive about Bitcoin, right? Obviously, like I said, it is literally 5:08 now in the morning. I get to the airport here pretty soon, but I'm obsessive about Bitcoin, right? I work on Bitcoin all day, every day, constantly. It's what I think about. It's what I talk about. I can go days thinking about Bitcoin and talking to people about Bitcoin, and I love it and I care about it, right? Because it's not about the number go up. I actually don't really care about the number going up today. It's been a very fun and exciting day because I've been able to talk to so many people, and answer their questions and help them out, right? Had clients today that have hundreds of coins or looking to buy, 6 or 7 smash buys, and I've got other people that are trying to get to that first coin or whatever, right? Like I love the variety. I love talking to people, and that's what makes Bitcoin really special. But all I'd say is like, I'm obsessive about this. I do this all day, every day. I outwork everyone when it comes to Bitcoin, right? And I'm not saying I'm better than anyone. I'm just saying that it's a matter of proof of work. It's a matter of effort. I'm not smarter than any than I'm not smarter than you necessarily, right? It's like, if I was smarter, I wouldn't need the proof of work. I would just know, but I don't know, which is why I need the proof of work. So anyway, but my point is that, because of my obsession, this is what I think about all the time. And right now, my obsession is what happens if this probability, as slim as it is, does come to fruition. Right now, when Michael Saylor invited me to dinner a couple months ago, it was him, me, like half a dozen like banking people. Next to me, by me was one of the, you know, someone that manages a top 20 position in U.S. Treasuries, right? So most of the conversation was actually about, game theory, thinking about the future, talking about the future of Bitcoin, right? And so I don't want to say too much about that, but my point is that like everyone that is newer to Bitcoin is obsessed about what is price going to do next, right? Like what is price going to do next? What's going to do? But the people that are highest net worth, that are thinking long term, they aren't trading, they're holding, and they understand something, which is at any moment this could just run away, right? And I think a lot of us watching right now want to assume, oh, Bitcoin's at $81,777, right? Oh, hopefully it's gonna go another dip, another dip. Give me that other dip. I just need that last dip or whatever, right? Give me the extra sats, right? Everybody wants it cheap when it's going up, and everyone wants it expensive when it's cheap, right? But like as much as I would like to think, maybe Bitcoin at 200 grand or 100 grand is pretty overheated. Like if America comes in and says we want 1 million Bitcoin and we don't care what it costs, right? Michael Saylor, Luke Broyles, and everyone watching his little videos, right? They're all, let's price them out, right? Like why would a major country force the price of Bitcoin down when they have a currency printer, right? Why wouldn't they just force the spot price of Bitcoin up indefinitely and price out all of their competitors? Basically, you can go to war with your enemy and have the economic benefit without ever having to fire a gun, right? It's like you get all the benefits of the spoils of war, economically wise, without the cost, those pesky costs of killing your own citizens, being elected if not executed, and destroying the world in the process, right? So it's all about the game theory, and that would be my encouragement to you, right? If you're wondering, what's Bitcoin's next move? Is it going to 96,000? Is it going back down to 75,000? Where's it going? My encouragement is think about the game theory, right? The biggest risk, and this is the really big thing. I want to make this very clear. Like, yes, this should excite you, right? Number go up is exciting. We all love, yay, Bitcoin's going to the moon. I've been waiting for years. I'm finally in the green, whatever. Like, okay, I know we're all happy. But your biggest risk in Bitcoin right now is not that I don't have enough Bitcoin. No, no, no. Your risk in Bitcoin is that you are too early to Bitcoin, which is not very popular to say, right? Like, people don't like it when I say that, but I think it's true. Where are we in Bitcoin's history right now? Let's say Bitcoin is digital Manhattan. Like we love the meme, right? Everything's a meme. Bitcoin's digital cyberspace, Bitcoin's digital Manhattan, whatever. Okay, where are we? What year are we in digital Manhattan? Okay, I would encourage you, both for the algorithm, but also because I'm curious what you all think, comment down below and below this video, what year of New York City are we in Bitcoin, right? Is it 1930s, right? We're on the verge of the Empire State Building, right? Maybe it's 1850, right? Maybe it's 1776, right? Founding of America, right? Yippee, right? Maybe it's later, maybe it's earlier, right? Where are we? Well, if you divide it out in terms of global population of who is here now and also who is here yet to come, we're in about 1630. You are so early to Bitcoin that we are not called New York City. We are called New Amsterdam. We don't have America yet because we're not even British yet. We're Dutch. Dutch! That's how early you are to Bitcoin. And you own dirt, physical, actual dirt, whole UTXOs that people in the future are going to build atop of. Yes, most people will never have UTXOs. In the same way, most people will never have the actual dirt of the island of Manhattan. Your biggest problem, if you're living in Manhattan in the year 1630 or 1635 or whatever, your biggest problem is not, oh, I'm too late to Manhattan. There's 10,000 people on the island now. That other goat herder moved up down the street, half a mile. Oh, this is horrible. I'm so late. It's like, no, your biggest problem is that you're going to go from 1630. The Dutch are going to have their currency crisis in about 20 years. Their bond market is going to collapse after 300 years of, avoiding insolvency. The Bank of Amsterdam is going to collapse. The largest, the largest colonial power by the sea of the day at the time with the spice trade, the largest corporation in the world, the Dutch East India Company, that's all going to collapse, right? And you're probably invested in that, right? Because you're probably Dutch. But then after that, you have the British. They're going to come in. You're going to have, nearly a century of British power, right, or a little over a century, I suppose. Then you're going to have the American Revolution, right? So then you have the Revolution. Then you get the new name. Actually, you got the name before that, I suppose. But then you found the country. Then you have 150 years until the Empire State Building. Then the Empire State Building is built. And then that's before the internet, before the computers, before Bitcoin, before all that stuff, right? It's like we are going along the line of Manhattan, roughly 3 times faster, right? Manhattan, well, in 1609 is when people first went there, right? 2009, ironically, 400 years later was Bitcoin. We're clocking along, somewhere between 2 to 3 times as fast, right? So my point is that that's your biggest risk with Bitcoin. And likewise, if in the slim chance Donald Trump in his little orange brain has a little orange idea, which is, why don't, for my own name, why don't I, in the interest of America, why the heck not? Why don't I just do it? Just screw it. Go for it, right? Why not? If he does, and if that starts the arm race, if that starts the musical chairs, are you ready? Your biggest concern, if you own actual dirt in Manhattan, is not you don't own enough dirt. The concern is you own so much dirt. What happens if some nation state artificially imports a heck of a lot of immigrants to your little island here, and all of a sudden the value of the dirt appreciate faster than your security of it? Right now, you have a whole city block and you're defending it with your pistol or whatever, right? Well, now all of a sudden, if you have more people coming, now you need more guns to protect your land, right? Well, now all of a sudden, now you don't only need the guns to protect your precious dirt here in Manhattan, but the deed to the land. You have to protect that because everybody else is coming and they're all going to sue you for that land. They're going to try to take that land. They're going to do whatever possible, right? So I'll get to this more in a minute. But this is my point. Donald Trump smash buying 1 million Bitcoin. Again, like I said in the very beginning of this video, you can hear me say possibility Donald Trump smash buys 1 million Bitcoin. And you could say, oh, that probably won't happen. It doesn't matter. It could. And likewise, you might say, oh, well, that's good for Bitcoin because America. Okay, like you're not wrong about that. On the other hand, you could say that's a very large concern because what happens if we have the game theory and it just starts to run away? Like, really, what happens? We don't know. We've never had this before. And I think if you're trying to predict how quick the world could change, like you are being very naive. We do not know. Additionally, not only Bitcoins, but block space, right? If you have a massive migration of nation states, of corporations, and high net worth individuals that all of a sudden want to have block space and make their own transactions, because not only does America need to secure its Bitcoin, it needs to also secure block space, miners, hash, to be able to make sure that transactions are going to be in the block. Because otherwise, what's the point of having the Bitcoin if you can't even transact it for the oil or the other resource that is in your national strategic advantage to have, right? So that's the point. Are you prepared both for Bitcoin, the asset, and for block space to dramatically appreciate, right? So again, if you think I'm doing this video for the news or news cycle or the views, like please consider, I've been saying this for years. I've been saying pay attention to Michael Saylor because a nation state is eventually going to copy him, right? That is what I've been saying for years, right? Nobody listened to me then, and I think very few people are listening to me now. Again, I want to make it very clear. I think the nation state arms race being upon us, I'm not saying it's inevitable, right? Like it is going to happen someday, but the idea of it happening in the next few months, I think is almost certainly not going to happen. But if it does happen, almost certainly you aren't prepared. That's the point, right? It's like you don't go and drive down the street and say, I'm not going to wear my seatbelt today because I'm probably not going to get a car accident, right? You don't refuse to buy fire insurance on your home because you say the house is probably not going to burn down, right? Like you don't do that, right? Same thing with your kids. Like you wouldn't jeopardize the safety of your kids' health just because probably nothing bad is going to happen. It's the same thing with your Bitcoin. Yeah, probably 99% chance, 95% chance, 99.9% chance. You pick the percentage. Whatever chance it's not going to happen, it doesn't matter. There's a 95% chance your house is not going to burn down in the next 10 years. You still need the fire insurance. You still don't leave your toaster plugged in overnight, right? It's like you still don't do stupid, reckless things. But with Bitcoin, we tend to forget that because unlike fire and unlike a car accident, the losses to Bitcoin are a bit more intangible. So nobody listening to me then, nobody listening to me now. If this happens, if we have the nation state, on the slight chance that it happens, it will be terrifying for anyone holding 0.0 Bitcoin, which again is the emphasis. Get off zero, text the phone number, buy $1 Bitcoin if you haven't already. And if you own Bitcoin, I highly encourage you to pay attention because if you don't believe me, pay attention to MicroStrategy. Okay, this morning, right? Like I said, right now it's now 5:20 in the morning. Wow, I've been talking 40 minutes already. Okay. But MicroStrategy is probably going to have a great morning, right? But keep in mind, what's happening here? Why is MicroStrategy doing so good? How can Michael Saylor get such cheap debt? Investors are willing to forego the bonds of the United States, where they get a much higher interest rate that is guaranteed by the full faith and credit of the United States in nominal terms. They're willing to pay way less interest to Michael Saylor and to get that fixed income because the upside is so much more for the converts, right? Like people are willing to buy those. Like, that is how much the market is demanding fixed income that has actual real term upside. They're willing to accept the unsecured loans with MicroStrategy, right? Like investors are lining up for that. That's why MicroStrategy stock is ripping, and it's probably going to be ripping this morning in just a couple hours from now, right? At the time of recording, right? So that's the thing to think about. When the nation state realizes, oh my gosh, this is how we grow more demand for our bonds. Oh, now I get it. Let's buy a million Bitcoin, right? This is what I think is going to happen. When the ducks are quacking, feed the ducks. And when Donald Trump understands the secret of life is the ducks quacking and feeding the ducks, then I think he might get it, right? So what would happen if this actually happened? Would it be an omega candle? Would the world be over? No, it probably wouldn't. I think it still would take time, right? It's not going to happen overnight. But what if it is the beginning of a long cycle that takes many years to unfold, right? Like it's probably not going to be a vertical omega candle. We immediately go to $10 million a coin, right? That's not what I'm saying. Because every country has the incentive to acquire more control of the network and coins, enough to get ahead of others, but not enough to dominate the network, right? If you're America, you would have more Bitcoin than China. If you're China, you would have more Bitcoin than America, but you don't have too much because if you have too much, you're actually a threat to the network, right? So you would have as much of the territory as possible without having so much of the territory that you're a single point of failure, and then you actually undermine the very thing that you've come to acquire, right? It's like that is probably the game theory which is going to happen here, right? Like America is not going to, smash by 30, $30 trillion, a Bitcoin. It's like it's going to start small. It's going to be gradual, but even though it's a small change at the nation state level, it's a massive change at our tiny, tiny, tiny little Bitcoin asset level, right? So it's probably not going to be overnight, but if it were to happen, I think it would take a long time because of the incentives. So if you are someone that wants to protect your Bitcoin on the slight chance of this happening, and again, for the sake of people that are critics and don't put in the effort of making countless Bitcoin videos and being obsessed like me and staying up all day every day and going to different countries around the world and conferences that just want to critique and say, oh, you're too much of a moon boy, you're too much of a bear, or whatever. Like again, there's nuance here. This is just a probability, but I think it's really worth considering because again, if it's going to happen, why not? Why not Trump? Why not now, right? And so if you are somebody and you say, I'm not emotionally prepared for my Bitcoin to go up by a factor of 10. I don't know if I have my Bitcoin prepared to go up in price by a factor of 5, let alone 7, let alone 15, let alone 2, right? Like, look at how quick Bitcoin has risen, right? Look at your net worth from 16,000 all the way up to today, right? It's like most of you watching have had your net worth skyrocket, right? You've made decades worth of salary in just the last couple of years, right? And so if you're somebody that wants to upgrade your Bitcoin self-custody, you want to upgrade your Bitcoin tax planning, you want to upgrade your Bitcoin insurance, your Bitcoin escrow compatibility, your Bitcoin everything, right? Feel free, text the phone number on the screen with your email address and share any information you want, right? Like, I don't care if you want to send me your whole life story, if you want to send me like 2 sentences, right? Like, I get everything. I get texts from people that have a lot of coins and people that are just starting, right? Like, I don't matter. It doesn't matter to me. Or you can book a call directly with me via the link in the description below. Like I've said multiple times before, I'm flying today in a few hours, but I'll be available as much as possible. So let's get some more tangible things. What are the hyper-specific things you should be worried about on the slight chance Trump were to go full orange man legacy, right? What would be the primary objectives for you to minimize, the primary risks, right? The biggest risk by far is opportunity cost, okay? Seriously, opportunity cost, right? Every single time Bitcoin goes up 1%, the net worth you have in Bitcoin goes up 1%, but your future cash flows fall by 1%, okay? And so opportunity cost is by far the most expensive thing you have right now, okay? If your opportunity cost is any kind of percentage of your net worth, that cost is eating into your potential gains, right? Sure, Microsoft didn't lose any money by investing in Bitcoin in 2020, but they lost a heck of a lot of opportunity cost, right? Sure, you didn't lose any money by not buying Bitcoin at $200, but that opportunity cost really ate in, right? And so the same thing is true today. You probably can buy more Bitcoin. You probably could sell some assets to buy Bitcoin. You probably have options available to you that you haven't even thought of. Not because you're dumb, not because you're not educated, not because you don't even know a lot about Bitcoin, and not even because, you're probably smarter than me. But it's just a matter of having the experience with somebody who's obsessive about Bitcoin, and in this particular case, someone who's obsessive about Bitcoin and has a team alongside me of 40 people that are also obsessed about Bitcoin, their whole goal is help people buy more Bitcoin, right? So that's the first thing. You probably can buy more Bitcoin. The question is how? And the question is, do you want to buy more Bitcoin? Maybe you don't. I think you probably do, right? So that's the biggest risk, your opportunity cost. The second biggest risk, counterparty risk. Do you have your Bitcoin on exchanges? What are you doing? There was a non-zero chance that the Russians, the Saudis, the Chinese, that somebody in the next 12 months is going to begin pricing oil and Bitcoin. If that happens, you really want to be holding your Bitcoin on exchanges? I don't think so. That's not a good idea. If Bitcoin were to go up, it's probably not a good idea because the nation state 6102 issue, even more likely, is the counterparty risk issue of that specific company. Even more likely than that is somebody steals your identity and withdraws your coins for you, right? If you don't take the withdrawal of your coins from your exchange seriously, somebody else will. I have sat live with people watching them be hacked, quote unquote, and, going from account to account, accounts being drained, right? And doing everything I can to help them get out. And that is not fun for me. I don't enjoy that. Okay. I don't make these videos. I don't talk about these risks because they're fun. They get the clickbaits and they get the watch time. They don't, right? But most of you already clicked off, right? I'm saying this for me because while I'm happy to help people that are going through these critical moments in life that have these massive stresses, it's like, I'd rather you just do it right. Get it done, man. Goodness sakes. You've had years. You've had years. And there's a small chance, a 1% to 3% chance, whatever, that you have literally months until this whole game is over. This whole era is over. You probably have more time, but you want to take that risk? That's not very intelligent of you. Just letting you know. Get off of the exchanges before I digitally slap you in the face like you deserve. So that's your second biggest risk by far. Concern number three is custody risk, right? If you have, let's say, 5 Bitcoin in a single sig, and that is in your house, and your family lives in your house, that is some degree of risk. If you have 5 Bitcoin at $81,000 times 5 Bitcoin in a single sig in your house is $405,000 worth of Bitcoin. Now, you might feel comfortable having $405,000 worth of Bitcoin accessible in your immediate home, right? Like that might be something you're comfortable with, and it is frankly probably a low risk. I would like to think most people would not be morally corrupt enough to, harm you to get that. But I got to be very frank, the $5 wrench attack is very real if you are a high net worth person, right? If you're somebody that has less than a year's worth salary in Bitcoin, right? Like maybe less than one Bitcoin, right? It's like, the $5 wrench attack is not very high. But seriously, people, I have talked to hundreds and hundreds of people in Bitcoin about this, right? There are people out there with hundreds of coins, dozens of coins, multiple coins that have everything just accessible in the house, right? And again, like the risk is low. I'm not trying to install excessive fear that's crippling, but I'm trying to make you a little paranoid. Would you own $405,000 of unmarked cash bills in your home? Probably not, because that is not only a risk to the Bitcoin, it's a risk to your family. Okay? I'm just being extremely blunt here. If you have 5 Bitcoin that is immediately accessible in your home, and anyone in your life knows you have Bitcoin, that is something to be aware of, right? Maybe they don't know, but in 10 years, like, again, you are so early to Bitcoin. This is Manhattan in 1630. Everybody in the future is going to know you have Bitcoin. There are going to be whole AI warehouses and people that have their whole careers paid extremely well salaries to figure out who were the Bitcoin OGs in 2020, 2012, 2030, 2040. Why? Because they want to sell you products. They want to get you to buy their yacht. They want to take your money, right, from, actual capitalistic free market things, or if they're malicious, $5 wrench you, right? At some point, your Bitcoin stack is going to appreciate enough in price, you will not feel comfortable being protected and safe against a $5 wrench attack, right? So again, many of you watching, this may not apply to, but for a lot of you watching, I know this definitely does apply to you, right? So again, I'm not telling you do this at that price, right? I'm telling you to ask yourself, ask your wife, for goodness sakes, do they even realize the kind of risk you have put them in? And I'm saying that with all due respect, right? Do they even know? I don't know. Maybe they do, maybe they don't, right? But you have to ask yourself, how many coins do I own? And at what Bitcoin price would I no longer be able to sleep soundly in my own home at night? I have seen these things happen, okay? I have seen people that have made incredible amounts of money that are living miserable lives because they are stressed. And I'm not saying that to make fun of them. I'm saying it because I care about people. It's why I'm staying up all night to do this, because I'm desperately warning you to take these things seriously now. What do I think is going to happen in the future? This is what I think is going to happen in the future. This is my general perspective of what the Bitcoin self-custody timeline looks like. We have less in common with the near future than the ancient past. I believe we are at or near peak single sig saturation. There are somewhere between 16 to 20 million people that will be able to own actual UTXOs. There are 330 million corporations in the world, right? Like I described before, every single, couple hundred thousand sats is a barrel of oil. Every 6 million Satoshis is an entire freaking company, right? If you have a whole Bitcoin, your problem is not that you don't have enough. Your problem is that now you got to secure it forever, right? Congratulations, you own an entire city block in Manhattan. Your new job is to keep it forever, because everybody forever is going to try to take it from you, right? From a wide variety of targets, right? So this is what I think is going to happen. I think right now we are over here, right? We are in the very beginning, right? Single sig is the dominant form of self-custody, and we are the very, very, very beginnings of multi-sig, right? Obviously, the blue line also is here, except, it's barely visible, right? Lightning is barely visible, right? There's way more wealth in Bitcoin held in multi-sig and multiple point of failure security models than, in layer 2 kind of stuff. Although layer 2 is the most sexy and exciting kind of stuff, right? And so I think come the future, right, we are so early to Bitcoin, it is not yet valuable enough that every single UTXO holder is mega wealthy, right? We're still so early. Most block space is not filled. We are still so early. There are more Bitcoins than Bitcoiners. There are less than 21 million Bitcoiners. Bitcoin is over 82. Oh, hey, look at that. Now we hit $82,000 per Bitcoin. So hey, this video is making the number go up, even though I haven't posted it yet. But the point is, we have less in common with the future than the past. For like, there's less people chasing Bitcoins than there are actual Bitcoins, and Bitcoin's still at 82 grand, right? Like pretty soon, there's going to be one Bitcoiner for every Bitcoin. Pretty soon, there's going to be two Bitcoiners for every Bitcoin. Pretty soon, there's going to be 100 Bitcoiners for every Bitcoin, right? And so that's how early you are. And in this very weird, kind of strange early period where people don't know what's going to happen, right? This is, I think, the area we're at. We are so early to Bitcoin. It's valuable enough that people have their life savings in Bitcoin, so they take self-custody, but it's not yet valuable enough that it's life-changing money, right? If you have 5 Bitcoin, or let's take a different number for the sake of example, right? If you have 30 Bitcoin and they're worth $100 a piece, you don't care about them enough to take self-custody, right? When you have 30 Bitcoin and they're worth 10 grand, now you're talking about 300 grand. Now you're taking self-custody because your Bitcoin now is worth enough to justify taking self-custody. The game theory dictates that if you're actually intelligent, you take self-custody, right? If you're not a hypocrite to yourself, you're actually taking self-custody. Now, of course, when you have 30 Bitcoin and 30 Bitcoin, you know, $500,000 a pop are worth $15 million in today's purchasing power. Well, now all of a sudden, obviously, you're not carrying a single cig around in your head, right? That's just ridiculous. Don't be naive, please, for goodness sakes, right? You want to own a block of Manhattan, keeping the deed in your head, right? That's an actual security threat, right? So I think this is what's going to happen over the coming decade or so. We're going to see multi-sig not only meet single sig, it is going to surpass it, right? If you want to borrow fiat against your Bitcoin, you're only going to be able to do that with multi-sig, with zero single point affiliate, right? You're not going to be able to do that with single sig, right? No lender is going to lend you cash based on your single sig. Come on, are you crazy, right? Escrow compatibility, insurance, trusts, IRAs, all kinds of financial products. The financialization of Bitcoin, where you don't have counterparty risk, is going to be made possible by multi-sigs, specifically multi-jurisdictional, multi-sig vaults with escrow compatibility. Sorry, I'm getting tired. Wow. It just hit me like a wave, man. Anyway, now after that, that's of course not the end, because like I said before, most people will never have actual UTXOs. So what's going to happen to the rest of the people? Well, I think what Hal Finney in 2010 is probably going to come true. Eventually, at some point, people are going to use Bitcoin banks, and it's going to be the golden age of layer 2s, IOUs, paper Bitcoin, right? Like most people will never own actual Bitcoin UTXOs, right? So this is the general trend of what I think, and this is how early you are to Bitcoin. You are so early to Bitcoin. You are in the early stages of like the second custody era, right? And actually, you could argue that this whole single sig hardware device era is actually the second era, because before that, at some point in Bitcoin's history, right? It's like, at the very beginning, seed words didn't exist, right? You write down your little 12 seed words now and pretend that's good forever. I've got my little 12 seed words written down. I'm good forever. I don't know, man. I don't know. At some point many years ago, seed words didn't exist, right? It's like Bitcoin custody already has had a complete evolution and change, right? Of simplification. We've gone from a more complicated thing to a simpler thing, a safer thing, going from the lack of seed words to the seed words, right? And I think this is the next step. We go from, oh, wow, I have half a Bitcoin at 80 grand, that's 40 grand, I'm rich, to, oh, wow, I've got half a Bitcoin at 1.6 million, I have 800 grand, I'm rich, right? Then justifying that, right? So this is what I think is going to happen. And then we're going to get to such an extreme point down the line where UTXOs are so valuable that families retire based on a single UTXO, right? Like, I think this is the long-term future of what we're looking at, right? So anyway, all of that is a rabbit hole tangent of number 3. That is your big risk. Are you custodying that Bitcoin, right? And are you being ahead of the curve, right? Tax risk, okay? What are the taxes you're going to pay, okay? Many people that reach out to me are concerned, what happens if my wife, if my child, if my brother, if my partner, whatever, wants to get that Bitcoin, right? Yes, you have to consider the possibility they don't find the Bitcoin, right? What if they're not technically proficient? What if someone steals it from them? What if they lose the keys, after 6 months of holding the Bitcoin, right? And keep in mind that for a lot of these loved ones in your life, like the problem doesn't go away. You want to desperately orange pill that person in your life and help them understand Bitcoin, but the reality is that they don't want to know, they don't care to know, right? They just want to live their life. But as every time Bitcoin doubles in price, their stress, their angst triples, and therefore it becomes only more likely they're going to make a mistake. So even assuming they get the Bitcoin successfully, you have to ask the question, if you're in America, what about the 40% estate tax, right? Have you prepared for that, right? Good old America, where you get taxed 40% for dying. Anyway, the point is that, are you prepared for that? You could, You could evade taxes. I do not recommend that. I do not recommend you evade taxes. You could hope and cross your fingers and assume that America changes the tax law and they get rid of that. You could hope that. But what happens if your death is untimely and it happens before that, right? What happens if America never repeals that, right? If you live in America, the downside is that you have the 40% estate tax. The benefit is that there are super easy ways to avoid essentially all of that tax if you have the right estate planning. That is the beautiful thing. You can negate that risk, right? I'll get to that more in just a moment. But that's a question you have to ask yourself. What is the risk of tax on my Bitcoin? Not just estate taxes, but capital gains taxes if you're going to sell any portion of your Bitcoin. That's something you have to keep in mind. Legal risk. What happens if somebody comes after you via the courts? Maybe we can't take his Bitcoin. Maybe we can't take his precious, precious dirt on Manhattan, but maybe we can make his life uncomfortable. Maybe we can go after him. We can say he was racist. We can say he was offensive. We can say he gave me bad financial advice. We can say. Again, it comes back to that the reality matters arguably not that much. The perception is what is more important than reality. There are many people in Bitcoin that have gone through multi-year exhausting court battles, right? There are many people, including, so Holdenot, you probably know of Holdenot. You have Holdenot versus Craig Wright, right? Holdenot is one of my coworkers here at the Bitcoin Advisor. He's one of the 40 guys on my team, at the company. I'm really proud of that. And, I think he's a good example, right? I'm not saying that you should be necessarily terrified of that. That's a very special case. But he went multiple years spending 7 figures worth of capital fighting Craig Wright over objectively bogus claims. They made his life, his family's life miserable for years. And I applaud Holdenot for getting through that. And that's one of the reasons why he's with me at the Bitcoin Advisors, because he understands, as well as everyone else at the company, as well as all of our clients, understand that it doesn't matter if you did things right or wrong. What matters is that you do not have a honeypot. There is no incentive for anyone to go after you because you are protected so much more than everything else. The other thing is time. Okay, organizing the opportunity cost and thinking through maximizing the opportunities at hand, right? Minimizing your counterparty risk, maximizing your custody security, and being updated with it forever as that technology changes, right? Being a tax expert and being a legal expert, right? All of those things take time, and that time takes away from productivity, and productivity takes away from your opportunity cost, which is your biggest expense, right? And number 7, which is the related part of this video, is the biggest risk I'm mentioning in this video: the Bitcoin price rising faster than your preparedness in any of these 5 categories, let alone multiple of these categories, right? If Bitcoin is to double, all of these risks will increase, right? If Bitcoin were to go up by 10, these risks would balloon in a hyperbolic fashion, right? So here, this is a legitimate question. What is your percent risk, right? Again, we're thinking of probabilities. What is the probability that Orange Man is going to turn the world into hyper Bitcoin arms race? Probably pretty low, but it is some sort of percentage risk, right? And likewise, what for you is that percentage risk, right? And then the other question too that I think it's important to think about is remembering to understand that all that matters is that you're not a low-hanging fruit, right? There is somebody out there that has the worst Bitcoin security in the world. There's somebody out there that has the least bad or the best Bitcoin security in the world, right? And the whole point is being ahead of them, right? If there are, 100,000 people that own actual land in Manhattan, right? It doesn't matter if you have proper security of that land. What matters is you don't have the least proper security for that land, right? Who are the bad guys going to go after, right? Who are they going to go after? They're going to go after the low-hanging fruit. They're not going to go after the people that are protected. They're not going to have to go after the people that have taken the minimum bare effort to not be in the 1%, the 1 percentile at the bottom, right? They want to be in the 99th percentile, right? Like, it's not good enough to be average at your Bitcoin security or your Bitcoin estate planning. If you're anything other than the best or as close to the best as you possibly can, like, you are a ripe candidate, right? And I'm not saying that to say that all these things are necessarily soon, but it's like, it's a zero-sum game. It's like running a race. Somebody has to be 10th place. Somebody has to be first place. Somebody has to be 8th place. And if you're the bear, right, it's like the joke. If you're running away from the bear, you don't have to be the fastest runner. You just got to be fastest than the slowest guy. It's the same thing with your Bitcoin self-custody. You have to keep that in mind. Every day, every year you procrastinate this, you fall farther behind in the race, and the bear is coming. And the bear is really, really big. And the bear appreciates with Bitcoin price. Every time Bitcoin price doubles, the size and the speed of the bear double because the incentive for someone to take your Bitcoin has doubled, right? And so if you're so negligent that you think, oh yeah, I'm okay because I'm doing a light little jog, oh blah blah blah, I think you fail to understand the true magnitude and scale of what you own. So here's an example, right? And I got to really go to the airport here soon. So here's an example. Okay, number one, opportunity cost. By far, seriously, my average client at the Bitcoin Advisor stacks on average 51.2% more Bitcoin in the first year, right? Obviously, some people increase their stack by a factor of 3x. Other people increase their stack by, let's say, 10%. Whatever the case, the average, again, emphasis average, is 51.2% more Bitcoin in the first year. Guess what? That average will collapse as Bitcoin prices skyrockets. Okay, the best time to maximize your opportunity is right now. Do not wait. It doesn't matter if you're going to only stack an extra 10% with my services or if you're going to triple your stack. Okay, our cost is 0.5%. Okay, if you don't like it, leave. Okay, but there's a reason clients stay once they join. Number two, counterparty risk. Okay, let's say in any given year there's a 3% risk that your exchange of choice goes down, that somebody takes it. Right? Let's say any given year with the self-custody risk, there's a 2% chance that at some point you're going to die, you're going to lose the keys when you're still alive, or somebody's going to $5 wrench you. Right? Let's say all those risks together, it's a 2% risk. I think that's exceedingly conservative because the odds of you dying in any given year are at least 1.5% or so, right? Of course, there's a tax risk too between capital gains and estate taxes. And of course, there's the legal risk too, that, 0.5% risk. Let's say once every 200 years, somebody throws a lawsuit at you, right? Let's say additionally, in order for you to keep half decent legal risks mitigated, half decent taxes mitigated, right? In order to keep those things half decent, you're going to have to spend, multiple hours a week, probably hundreds of hours every single year just to keep up, right? And so the point is that if Bitcoin happens, which fully maybe potentially depends on Donald here in this case, what happens in the next few months, right? My point is that by not taking action with a service professional to help you accelerate these things, do not be the 10th guy running away from the bear, but instead be the guy in the first place or second place, right? If you don't do that, at minimum, it's costing you 5%. I think it's costing you at least 30%. For some people, you have a lot more opportunity, so it's costing you even more, right? The point is, this is why I am talking about this, right? So if you want an OTC desk, right? If you are watching this and you are looking to buy, let's say, $50,000 of Bitcoin, or $100,000 of Bitcoin, or $1 million of Bitcoin, or $5 million of Bitcoin, right? If you're looking to buy a significant amount of Bitcoin, I highly encourage you to use an OTC desk. This is going to save you some kind of percentage on your Bitcoin. It might save you 0.5% on your Bitcoin. I think it's probably going to save you much more, like 2% on your Bitcoin, right? If you are going to smash buy large amounts of Bitcoin on a typical exchange, you are going to skew the order books against your favor. And I highly encourage you using OTC Desk if you're looking to buy or sell, although I know none of you are selling right now, that you're going to probably need that, right? And so that's something I can help you do. Please text the phone number in the link in the description below, or email me, or book a call. I'll be more than happy to set you up an OTC desk. Irrevocable trusts. This is a question a lot of people have, right? So I'm going to leave some text on the screen here for you to read. I don't have time to read into it, but basically, long story short, is that as of 2024, the exemption for this trust was $13.6 million per individual. However, this is set to change. Estimates suggest this could decrease to around $7 million per individual. It's a dramatic decrease, right? And so my point is that you have increased tax exposure if you miss out on that deadline. And additionally, there's, of course, all kinds of other benefits too, which I don't have time to get into because I really got to go to the airport. Bitcoin IRAs. Yes, it is possible for you to own Bitcoin self-custody in IRAs via multisig. No person with a single sig is going to let you do that, right? And you don't want to do that with counterparty risk, right? But if you want to have Bitcoin self-custody in an IRA, or you love somebody that has and a desire to buy Bitcoin, and they have a lot of capital in an IRA that they're looking to convert into Bitcoin, okay, this is definitely possible. You can have tax-free growth on Bitcoin, okay? This is especially important. If you have asset A, if you have $100,000 of asset A, $100,000 of asset B, and asset A is going to double in appreciation every single year to this asset, you would rather own that asset in the IRA. Am I saying you should have all of your Bitcoin in a multi-sig vault in an IRA? No, probably not. But it's worthy of some sort of diversification, right? You might as well capitalize on this government handout of minimizing, the tax gains, right? Of course, rollovers are possible. If you have money in a IRA, whether it's a Roth IRA, traditional IRA, inherited IRA, whatever, you are able to roll over those funds into Bitcoin. If you're watching this and you have those retirement accounts and you have the FOMO to roll over into Bitcoin, you can do whatever you want. I will not tell you what to do. You can roll over 10% of it into Bitcoin, half of it, all of it. I don't care. I'm just making these tools able for you, right? I was talking to someone earlier today who was looking to, cash out their retirement account ASAP to buy Bitcoin. And just that 1 hour call alone, at first they were like, hey, I want to talk to you, love your videos, blah, blah, blah. What about the, and that call alone saved them a lot, right? So I'm trying to make that very well known. For all of you watching that know that, that's great, but tell your loved ones, right? Keep in mind, you do not have to withdraw from your retirement tax advantage accounts in order to acquire self-custody Bitcoin. Multi-jurisdictional, multi-sig vaults, in my opinion, are really important. Okay, DIY multi-sig vaults are, good. I definitely, recommend them. But specifically what I'm talking about here is escrow compatibility. You are really going to want that. Multi-sig vaults are great, but escrow compatibility and escrow compatible vaults, I think, are going to be really important in the coming years, right? For super managed super funds, for private placement life insurance, for all kinds of irrevocable trusts, for borrowing US dollars against your Bitcoin, for taking out insurance against your Bitcoin or on behalf of your Bitcoin, right? It's like there are all sorts of optionalities that are going to become available if you have the proper setup, right? None of these are silver bullets. None of these products are silver bullets, right? And my point is, I'm not spending this time, shilling you some little product with some little affiliate link where I get, a $5 kickback or whatever, right? I'm saying what I highly recommend you consider is needing a one-stop tech agnostic service that has been promoted to you relentlessly that only recommends products they believe you need with a legal fiduciary duty to you to help you set up with more Bitcoin, right? That is my goal. How do I help people buy more Bitcoin? When Michael invited me to dinner a few months ago, Michael Saylor invited me to dinner next month, he made it very clear to some people that didn't understand his role, that his role is help shareholders buy more Bitcoin. Like nothing else matters. Like nothing else matters. That's all that matters. Get the shareholders more Bitcoin, right? When people would ask him questions that would annoy him, right? And so my point is, it's the same thing for me. What is my incentive? My incentive is I want to make as much Bitcoin as possible. I'm making this video. I'm talking about it because I want to see the world succeed. I want to see America succeed. I don't want to see us go to war. I want to see peace. I'm going to El Salvador. I want to help the global, the global South or the developing world, whatever you want to call it, right? I want to help people, and I want to make a lot of money in the process, right? It's like I want both, right? And what's the best way to make a bunch of money is to help the most people. What's the best way to help people in Bitcoin is to help them buy more Bitcoin, right? Like I could make money by, having some little advert in this video and I get, $20 for every sign up I get or whatever. Like, okay, that's cute, whatever. But the problem is that Bitcoin's going up. How do I make more money? It's by helping somebody buy more Bitcoin. It's how this whole thing works, right? That's why I'm having this video be so long, because I'm trying to get this point across, right? You don't need to have 10 different products at 10 different companies with 12 different service representatives. You need one service representative that is tech agnostic, that's going to be blunt with you on which product is ideal for which scenario, right? Not everyone needs a Bitcoin IRA. Not everyone can or need a super fund. Not everyone needs private placement life insurance. Not everyone needs a multi-jurisdictional multi-sig vault. Not everyone needs an irrevocable trust, right? But a lot of people don't even know what they don't know, and they don't know what they need to know, right? And so I'm not saying I know everything, but again, I just happen to be obsessed, right? Like it's 5:52. It's coming up on here, and I got to really go here. Wrapping up, go. Okay, yeah. So again, your biggest problem is not that you don't have enough. Okay, the biggest problem is time and target. Time and target. If you are someone with hundreds of coins, you are a target, right? You right now are a target. You are a target. You are a target. Please, please, please stop putting this off. I cannot believe I have to say this. If you have significant amount of Bitcoin, whether you have them and you forgot them or you already are stressing about them all the time, please do it now. I happily help people take self-custody of their Bitcoin and make sure they're protecting it right? If you're somewhere in the middle of this very, very, very wide range, let's say you have 5.3 Bitcoin or you have 7.25 Bitcoin, or you're coming up trying to get to that 10 Bitcoin mark, right? Let's say you have 21 Bitcoin, 35 Bitcoin, 55, 66. It doesn't matter. Whatever Bitcoin amount is you have in the middle, you have to seriously take it, right? This is a spectrum here, right? If you are on this extreme of the spectrum, you are already a target. You should have been doing this years ago. It has been irresponsible. You are at serious, serious risk. And likewise, if you have half of a coin, your big risk is time. Because guess what? You might think you can procrastinate this because you have a long time horizon for doing these things. But guess what? The people with 5 coins are going to price you out, right? Shoot, even the people with 1 coin are going to price you out, right? And the people that are going to price out the people with 5 coins, the people with 20 coins, the people with 60 coins, right? And so the point is that if you're a big target, you got to do this now. And if you're a small target, I would still highly encourage you to consider doing this now, because I'm telling you, all the big targets are procrastinating this. And when they all wake up, what do you think is going to happen to you, right? They're going to price you out. because they got more Bitcoin than you, right? I'm just being blunt. I'm just being honest, right? This is what I do. This is why you don't see me, show random products or affiliate links, or I don't, have lots of sponsors, right? Like I have some sponsors with companies I believe in, but I just don't talk about it anymore just because I don't. It's just I just don't enjoy it as much. It's not as important to me, right? It's like people are new to driving. I don't want to tell them, oh, here's a 2-minute advert about why you should buy Toyota, or here's another 2-minute advert of why you should buy Honda. Like to people, it's confusing, right? You don't need that. You need one, driving instructor that's going to teach you how to use everything. It's going to ask you questions, get to know you, get to understand your goals, to have an aligned incentive to help you drive the car as far as possible, as safe as possible. That's the same thing with the Bitcoin here. My goal is we charge 0.5%. I want to help you stack an extra 0.5% more Bitcoin. If you don't think I can help you get at least 0.5% more Bitcoin, that's on you. That's your choice. I wish you the best of luck, right? So if you reach out to me, if you text the phone number in the link in the description below, if you email me, if you do all that, what do you get? You get a one-stop shop service, right? The explicit goal is help you buy more Bitcoin, right? In the same way that Michael Saylor's job is to help people acquire more Bitcoin, which I'm sure in just a couple hours here with the stock rocketing to new all-time highs, surely tomorrow, he's going to do a very good job. He is probably if anyone else is awake right now doing an all-nighter on Bitcoin, it's probably Michael Saylor. Okay, and likewise with me, people hire me explicitly to help them make more Bitcoin. It's how I make more money, and it's also how clients make more money, right? I make way more money helping people buy more Bitcoin than selling little affiliates or selling out on my YouTube channel for a couple $100, right? I'm not shaming that, right? Like that's okay, right? It's like I'm happy to do that for legitimate companies, right? But I'm just making my incentives crystal clear here, right? So just for me, I'm much more aligned with the service that is tech agnostic than only promoting whichever company happens to have the largest marketing budget of the month, right? That's just how I personally operate. Maybe that means my standards are too high, but oh well, whatever, right? So yes, obviously money is my incentives here. I do want you to reach out. I do want you to consider these things now. Obviously, it's in my financial interest. However, that financial interest only comes as a function of helping make other people more money, right? So in short, the value proposition for clients is they pay us 0.5% fee, and in exchange, they have the peace of mind of having 40 hyper-obsessed Bitcoiners on the team help them keep multiple years ahead of the curve, right? People are paying us for the peace of mind give me one sec. I need to text somebody. Okay, they've been texted, right? Oh man, the morning texts are already coming in. So yeah, so basically that's what people pay us for. They pay us to keep a couple years ahead. And basically trust that we're hyper obsessed and that that we have because we do have their legal fiduciary duty to help them end up with more Bitcoin. So we only recommend stuff that we think is in their interest of keeping their Bitcoin safe and keeping it protected. Bitcoin's like Manhattan, blah, blah, blah. I already said that. Again, it doesn't matter. It does not matter. It does not matter. Your biggest problem is not that you're too late to Bitcoin. Your biggest problem is not that you hit one coin. Your biggest problem is not that you missed out and you could have had more coins yet, right? It's like, yes, get to 1 Bitcoin, get to 20 Bitcoin, get to whatever your personal stacking goal is. Yes, go, 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 go. This is it. This is it. If the nation states start to stockpile Bitcoin for oil, right? This is it, okay? So it doesn't matter. I don't care if you own 100 square meters in Manhattan. I don't care if you own a whole freaking city block, which if you do, congratulations. And I don't care if you own a single square inch. Upon that inch is going to be Grand Central Station, the Statue of Liberty, the Empire State Building, the World Trade Center, right? These are the things of the future. The future will be built upon the bedrock that is the Bitcoin you hold. And it does not matter how little you own, even if it's a square inch. People will spend their lives trying to acquire what precious few Satoshis you own. You want to be bullish on Bitcoin. You want to hear me make the videos talking about $100 million Bitcoin. I genuinely believe it. People ask me when I'm on a call, Luke, do you actually believe that? Yes, I do actually believe that. And I believe that because I'm the one out here making the video that's now well over an hour and a half long, begging people to take that possibility seriously. People that think Bitcoin's going to 500,000 don't talk about this stuff. People that think that we're in 1630s New Amsterdam and someday we're going to have a 5-story wooden building. Whoa, that's big. Building go up, number go up. And I'm here, the mega hyperbole, saying, no, you idiots, we're not going to build 5 stories of a wooden building. We're going to build a freaking skyscraper 100 stories tall out of steel, and we're going to go on elevators using electricity. It's like, We have less in common with the near future than the past. 100 years from now, the world's going to look so different. And that amount of change is going to happen, and it's coming really, really, really quickly. I think most of us are very surprised how quickly this has happened. If that surprises you, please take what I'm saying to heart, right? Most people will never own the dirt of the island. Most people will never own the actual UTXOs. They will come for you to get that, right? You don't get to have the privilege of being in the top 0.1% of the world without the problems and headaches of the 0.1%. You may think, oh, no one will ever come after me for these things. No one will ever $5 wrench me. No one will ever come after me for tax, legal, or whatever reasons, right? That will never happen to me. I'm telling you, you don't get to have your cake and eat it too. You don't get, it's an inherent trade-off, right? There's 0.1% of the world in Bitcoin. You probably have more Bitcoin than 90% of people in Bitcoin. You're in the top 0.01%. You don't get all the luxuries and spoils of your intelligence and of your conviction of the next couple decades without having some costs along the way. How many people do you know that bought Bitcoin at $1 and don't have it anymore? How many people do you know that had Bitcoin at $20 or $200 or $1,000 and kept all of it, let alone half of it, right? That's the big question I'm trying to hammer home. And I'm really emphasizing this video at this particular time in the market because this is the point. This right now is the last chance. If you are someone that you don't have enough Bitcoin yet, that you are going to become a target, right? If you have between half a Bitcoin to 5 Bitcoin, I am begging you. There are 40 people at the Bitcoin Advisor team. I'm telling you, I work at this company. I see what everyone and every other company is doing. By the way, if you like this video, please like and subscribe. Okay, I don't know why I put that on there. Again, there's the information. You can book a call with me. You can text the phone number in the link description below. I'm making my point. Also, if you're on zero, if you're somebody that you're like, Luke, I don't know what the heck you're talking about. Why are you losing your voice? Just buy $1. I'll send you $1. Okay, I'll send you a barrel of oil. Okay, it's just I'm sending it to you, 40 years in advance, right? So most people won't listen. That's okay. The point I was about to get at is that I personally could maybe help 100 to 300 people this cycle. Like I literally can't help more. It's not because I'm greedy. It's not because I'm short-sighted. It's because I'm a human being and I can only stay up all night so many nights, right? So there's only so many people I can help, right? My team of 40 people at Bitcoin Advisor, we've been doing this since 2016. Maybe we can help a few thousand people, 3,000 people. I don't know, maybe it's more, but it's like there's going to be tens of thousands of people that are going to need this. There's going to be so many people that need this. Like, in best case scenario, I think our company is going to be able to help a couple percent of them, 5%, 10%. I don't know. Like, I really don't know. This is what keeps me up at night. This is what terrifies me. I believe the nation states are going to adopt this. I actually believe that. Most people that tell you they believe that, I don't know if they actually believe that. I think they are. And if they are, what do you think is going to happen? Right? It's like, you got to internalize this stuff. Everything has a trade-off. So I'm desperately warning you to do this now because there is no, just find somebody that's tech agnostic, that's a service provider that can help you do that. And, you can say I'm biased, and I am, right? I am biased, right? A couple hundred, a couple thousand people watch this, one or two, you'll reach out. And of course, you'll become clients and it'll be great, right? Most of you won't do that. But yes, I am definitely financially incentivized to make this video and all the videos I make. But again, you've been watching my videos for a long time. You are one of my core early subscribers, fans, and I appreciate your support. And if you have watched me for any length, you know kind of what my character is, and you kind of know my confidence and my honesty, right? And it's like, that's for your maybe you don't think I'm honest or competent. And if that's fine, then okay, click up the video right now. Whatever. I don't care. But that's my point, is that I'm not making this video to pitch you on Bitcoin or my services. I'm making this video so I don't have a guilty conscience later. Okay, so I cannot be blamed of a lack of warning you, right? So please get off zero, take self-custody, act like your Bitcoin's already worth 400 grand, think through the game theory, either capitulate into doing all these things on your own that I'm encouraging you to think about, or it will weigh on your conscience until you do so. So I say these things because I love you, I care about you, I want the money, obviously this is my financial incentive, but I'm saying these things because I appreciate your efforts, I appreciate you watching this video to this point, and I want to see more plebs before the governments enter. So that is my question. Who is buying right now? And we will see where we go from there. So anyway, like and subscribe. I got to go to the airport. Bye, everyone. Bye, America. See you in a couple weeks.